Hello, everybody. It is 1:15 p.m. Central Time on Monday, November 7th, 2016. And I've got you here on the Earthquake 3D live stream. Everybody, welcome in. If you're new here, of course, please subscribe up. That's how I grow my channel on YouTube. Now, guys, hey, heads up. Take a look at it. Over in Europe, a 4.1 earthquake struck in the exact spot where we warned. We issued the warning last night telling people it would top out today at 4.1, and now it is going into 8 to 9 p.m. over in Italy, and like I said, by tonight we would have a 4.1. And that occurred just as expected. It went through 2s and 3s today and then popped up to 4.1. Additionally, check it out over here in the United States. The area, South Illinois at the Missouri border. This is about 100 miles south of my location. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, and on the New Madrid seismic zone, 60 miles south of our fracking operation that I warned last night. We warned Illinois last night, guys. Warned Illinois last night. Now Illinois border is struck right in Kentucky. And we talked about how Paducah, Kentucky, how Memphis. We talked about the New Madrid last night and how only leftovers would transfer up to north. And I said 2.0. And here we are, and we're at 2.7. So the 5 yesterday, 5.3, has put pressure to the east. The next round of movement should strike down in Alabama and up the East Coast. So the reason the Midwest was struck, again, leftovers off the earthquakes here in the Midwest at the fracking operations in Oklahoma, transferred to the east and produced just a 2.7. Not that big of a deal. The pressure, now if the fracking operations weren't there in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas, then the earthquake would have occurred basically down in southern Missouri, right at the bend that you see here on the plate. You can kind of see how it makes a N shape there. Well, ironically, the New Madrid, right? So remember, lowercase n for New Madrid. And there it is. So we were expecting that to occur, and it has occurred. It occurred 60 miles south of the fracking operation I named last night in Illinois. All right, and now we probably should also go check really quick, go over and take a look on Google Earth. Now let me turn on a display capture here, just so you guys can see it. Okay, here's our earthquake. 60 miles north are our fracking operations. So I don't think it's smart for them to be fracking in the Wabash Valley and New Madrid seismic zone, but you zoom in on it, you can see the frac wells. We have our oil wells. Okay, here's our oil collection tank. Here's a shadow on one of the wells. So not the best imagery, but you can still make it out. And yeah, so that's going on there. Now let's go look up in the northeast United States into Canada. To see that, though, we have to go look at NR Canada, which USGS just really isn't doing a good job of showing us earthquakes on the East Coast. They seem to miss them on purpose so that people don't realize earthquakes are happening on the East Coast. They just don't report them. Okay, so we can see, Quebec, yeah, check it out. Over the last 2 days, Quebec, near 3.0 activity, 2.8 and a 2.0 and a 1.3. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Also 2.0 going back to the 4th, but we'll take the 5th and 6th. So there we go. East Coast movement has occurred since yesterday. And let's quickly turn on our last 24-hour feed. This will show us all the microquakes across the country. See if there's any difference between what's reported on the feeds. And no, okay, it all looks pretty much the same. Okay, one other thing I'd like to show you, one thing that's going to play out for the whole planet here at this point, one thing that I didn't want to see, one thing that I wish wouldn't have occurred, which is a new round of deep earthquakes has occurred from up in Japan. You see these raised high off the globe? Okay? Each earthquake raised high off the globe. I'll start up in Japan and read you our depths. So we have the 4.6. This is at a depth of 488 kilometers. I mean, that's in itself will cause major movement in the Pacific. But that was followed this morning by a 4.3 at 528 kilometers deep down below the Philippines. Then that was followed again a few hours later, just this afternoon, by a 4.7, and that's at 587 kilometers deep in Tonga. So 580 down to 450 basically. So what does this mean? The whole West Pacific, from Fiji west to Philippines, north to Japan, has now moved very far down below and is going to displace the whole West Pacific plate. It's just a matter of days now, 48 hours or less, we should really see a dramatic increase in earthquake activity. And I'm going to put a warning out now. We have to watch out for the potential of a very large earthquake to develop out off of this movement. The whole area. Let's get a line measurement tool from south of Fiji up to the Kuril Islands. I'm curious. I want to know how far of a distance that's been displaced here. We're talking about an area maybe 4,000 or 5,000 miles across being displaced in a day's time. Maybe even more. Let's get the line measurement tool. Okay, so we're starting down here east-southeast of Fiji, and we're going up to the area north of the Kuril Islands. That's 5,000, let's just make sure, yeah. That is 5,300 miles. Kilometers, 8,500 kilometers. And then from the point in North Japan down to the Philippines, let's compare where the deep earthquake struck in the Philippines. Okay, just to make sure. All right, South Island of the Philippines. So let's measure from up here in Kuril Islands, where a deep earthquake is there, down to the South Island. That's another 4,980 miles, or actually it's just south of the island. 5,100 miles. Okay, so 5,100 miles in one direction and 5,800 miles in another. In other words, almost 6,000 miles across in a triangular or square formation, if you want to take that into square, or you could do it by triangular. Either or, the whole area, 6,000 miles across, moving down below right now. Now, deep earthquakes mean shallower, larger earthquakes. So the 4.7 can cause a 5.7 to 6.7. The 4.3 here below Philippines can cause a 5.3 to 6.3. And the 4.6 up here in Japan can cause a 5.6 to 6.6. Now, the northernmost deep earthquake is going to push to the west. Same with the 4.3. 4.3 is going to push to the west. 4.6 is going to push to the west. We now have to really be on watch in the Mideast going over to Myanmar. This puts Nepal back in the mix, and western China. Could get large. Again, up to 6.6. Now, the area in between the 4.7 over in Fiji and the 4.3 also will move, and we will see 1 to 2 magnitudes larger. That takes us from 5.7 to 6.7, striking right in the middle. We're going to watch for 3 to 4 days. Why 3 to 4 days? Well, we have 3 deep earthquakes. 3. Which means the whole plate's going to move over here in the West Pacific, and it's going to be larger in between the deep earthquakes. So halfway points between these deep earthquakes really need to be on watch. Where's the other halfway point? South Japan, Central Japan, near Tokyo. And like I said, 4.6 can cause a shallow 5.6 to 6.6. It's not going to stop there, though. Now that the whole Pacific plate has been displaced down below, you can imagine upwelling pressure coming up from down below on the underside of the plate Okay, the whole underside of the plate, and pushing up and out. And what's that going to do? That's going to cause new movement over on the west coast of the United States, Central America, and South America. Compensation movement. It's going to be huge this week, guys. We're going to really kick back up. And that's not just in the Pacific. We're going to go across over into Europe again now that we have 3 new deep earthquakes that have occurred. 3 across 6,000 miles. The whole Pacific plate is under flux, in flux right now. Which means we're only looking at 2 to 3 days time between the time these deep earthquakes translate out going over into Europe. Now Europe, you were struck by the 4.1 that we warned for. I'm not bragging, but I got to show you. The exact magnitude we were looking for struck. Why? We go back to last night's update. Last night's update, I specifically said, watching for 4.1 because of the 4 that struck last night in Cyprus, adding up with the other 3s in Turkey and Greece. And if you took the 4 in Cyprus, plus the 5 or 6 different 3s, plus the 2s, that added up to 4.1. And we said it last night in last night's update. And the spot we were looking for was central Italy for the 4.1. So, that being said, guys, we've got some activity developing out elsewhere. South America, I told you last night, the pressure would transfer up into Peru, then spring back down to the south and try to go underneath the plate. And what's occurring right now? Earthquakes developing back down to the south, deep, trying to go underneath the plate. All in all, it's a sign. 3 deep earthquakes means upwelling pressure around the whole western Pacific. This may also be why Hawaii is swarming right now. Hawaii kind of right in the middle of it, in between the 3 points that have pressed up. And the magma that's associated with that, the uprising pressure, upwelling pressure, will displace volcanoes. Oh, that's the other thing. We're going to see a noteworthy increase in volcanic eruptions in the next few days. Like dramatic. You will see new eruptions happening all around the West Pacific in our silent zones, in the middle points of each zone. Japan going back into the mix. You also hear about it in Indonesia, also in Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu. All right, so again, this is going to happen all at once in the next several days. You can't get this amount of deep movement and not see new upwelling pressure. This is like a worst case scenario. I was hoping it was going to die out. This past week I talked about it. Oh, we should hopefully see it. You know, if it dies out, finally we'll get a breather. Well, how about 3 earthquakes equidistantly spaced across the whole West Pacific letting us know something huge is coming? Either a dramatic event going all the way around the plate with multiple upper 5s maybe, or a single large earthquake. Those are our options. Man. So, anyways, Italy struck as expected. Midwest USA struck as expected. Illinois. I mean, come on. Illinois. How often does Illinois get hit? Technically, this is right at the Illinois border, but it's been a while. And the reason it struck to the north, again, pressure is transferring to the east along the edge of the craton. So, East Coast, you're back in the mix. East Coast U.S., I told you last night. So, much love, okay? Again, guys, don't be scared when I'm telling you, look, it's going to get large. I want you to be prepared so that you're not caught off guard when it hits the fan. And luckily, over the past several days, it has quieted down. We haven't had very many large earthquakes in the past few days. That's good. That's really good. Pressure is transferred out from the West Coast to the Midwest, from the West Pacific over to all the way to the North Pole now. Mount Dutch supervolcano was struck almost, guys. Take a look at it. The 4.6. 4.6 striking right next to Mount Dutch supervolcano. 60 miles long, 30-mile wide caldera at the north tip of the North Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It is a supervolcano. And yes, it is Mount Dutch, because I'm the one who discovered it, and had to fight for it. All right, so there it is, North Pole earthquake following the movement in Europe. And that was over the past several days. We've been talking about that. So have a plan. Don't be scared. Be prepared. It's cool to be prepared. It's a good idea to be prepared. You'll be happy if you're prepared. And when the earthquakes strike, you won't be caught off guard. You'll be saying something more like, oh, it's happening now. As opposed to, oh my God, an earthquake. Oh, what are we going to do? You will be, there it is. I was waiting for that. Okay? And that's a huge difference in your mindset and the way you respond to the earthquake striking. If you know to look for it when it comes, when it starts shaking, you say, it's here. Okay, boom. And you head for it. Instead of looking around and wondering what's going on, and in those valuable seconds, you may only have 20 seconds to escape your house in a larger earthquake. 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds at the most. Then your house is starting to fall in if you have a large earthquake. Okay? So, there we go. Italy struck as expected, Midwest struck as expected, and now the unexpected. 3 new deep earthquakes across 6,000 miles all at once, or within a few hours' time. And that will have a translating pressure that comes up and displaces the whole plate. It's just a matter of days now, or less. Be on watch, guys. Be on watch.